Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation entitled Recognize, Refuse, Report. The words Recognize, Refuse, Report are words that AARP ElderWatch has been using for many years to help older adults across Colorado identify different types of scams, learn how to kind of stop them or refuse them, as well as how to report them. And today, what I'm going to be doing is talking through recognizing a scam, no matter what the scam is, based on a couple different elements, refusing scams and reporting scams. For those of you who are not familiar with AARP ElderWatch, ElderWatch is a partnership between AARP and the Colorado Attorney General's Office that has been in place for over 20 years. We do education outreach about frauds and scams and financial literacy issues for older adults across Colorado. And in addition to that, we have a volunteer staffed call center where we take different types of inquiries about frauds and scams and financial literacy issues. And so I encourage you at the end of the presentation, as part of the report section of the presentation, I'll give you that phone number. So I encourage you to write that down. So just before we get started with the recognize, refusing, and reporting part of the presentation, I just wanted to go through real quick the top scams reported by older Coloradans in 2022 to the AARP ElderWatch helpline. And just going through the list real quick, imposter business, oftentimes these types of scams are Amazon imposter scams. That was the most common type of scam reported to our helpline in 2022. Number two, identity theft. Identity theft is a common element of lots of different types of scams, and we see it still very consistently. People are getting their personal information and financial information used in different situations and looking for assistance from AARP ElderWatch. Number three, tech support and computer virus scams. Again, one of the most common types of scams we hear about, people posing as large computer companies and trying to help you out with your computer issue. Number four, government imposter scams, oftentimes posing as a large government entity such as Social Security or the IRS, sometimes Medicare as well. Number five, home repair and improvement scams. Oftentimes, this is a disagreement with a contractor about a project or unfinished work type of issues. Number six, online dating and romance scams. These types of scams have really gone crazy over the last 2 or 3 years. And, this is often where someone is meeting someone on a dating site or social media and trying to get their money in different ways, shapes, and forms. Number seven, fraudulent sales. Again, another thing that we've been seeing a lot of this is with regard to online sales, different types of fake websites popping up or people having issues with different types of sales online. Number eight, sweepstakes prize and lottery scams. Again, this is one I just heard a report of today where people are posing as Publishers Clearinghouse or other types of entities of giving away money, but are insisting someone pay money to receive the money, which is always a scam. Number nine, phishing. And this is very much a catch-all for a lot of scams that are reported to our helpline, but it's often where, again, someone is phishing or trying to get personal financial information for someone, often in the form of an email or unsolicited phone call. And number 10 on this list, non-stranger exploitation, often where a family member or friend or caregiver is taking advantage of an older adult who and often in some way financially. So those are the top reports we've heard about in 2022, and I'll be referencing some of these types of scams in today's presentation about recognizing, refusing, and reporting. Before I move into that as well, I just wanted to share the Colorado Attorney General's top complaints as well. You'll see some crossover with the list, but this is not an exclusive list of different types of scams reported by older Coloradans. This is reported by all types of people of all ages across Colorado, and it represents about 18,000 different complaints that were sent in to the Colorado Attorney General's office. And when you look at this list, again, you'll see similar ones on our list and see retail sales at the top there. Also issues with contractors, like I talked about, coming in very high. So interesting list. I encourage you to go to stopfraudcolorado.gov to learn about the different types of scams reported directly to the Attorney General's office and how to avoid them. So again, what I'm going to do today is talk about the different ways that you can recognize if a scammer is trying to contact you. And the nice part about this presentation, I think, is that we're not talking as much about specific types of scams, but we're talking about kind of general red flags that we should be looking for to recognize if something is potentially a scam. And the way I'm going to start with this presentation is talking about recognizing the different communication methods that scammers commonly use, and red flags that might indicate that whatever communication method they're using, it might be some type of a scam. So the first one we're going to talk about is phone calls. And so again, recognizing a scam based upon the fact that there are unknown phone numbers coming into your phone, and you don't necessarily know if you should answer them, that type of a thing. Again, unsolicited offers that you might receive from someone who calls you, anyone who's asking for personal or financial information on the phone. Again, another way of recognizing a red flag of some type of a scam or a bad actor who's on the other line. Seeing that scam likely indicator that pops up on your phone is another really good way of telling that there might be a scammer on the other line. Oftentimes how these scam likely notifications are generated is that, someone reports a number as a scam number and then informs phone companies and authorities that it's likely a scam number. And so if someone receives a call from that number, or the number kind of looks like it could be a scam or a little bit different than a normal number, then the phone company will put up these warnings to help indicate that it might be a scam. And so again, good indicators that someone on the other line is trying to scam you or take your money. Phone calls that are saying they're urgent requests, and a lot of times we'll see this as part of like a grandparent scam, or even sometimes a sweepstakes scam where they say you have to send money by a certain amount of time, or whatever the situation is not going to be resolved. Again, scammers don't want you to take time to think about situations, so oftentimes it's an urgent request in these situations. And also anyone calling from a large, government agency, or someone saying they're from a large government agency, like I referenced before, with regard to the IRS or Social Security, it's a scam. Same thing, well-known businesses like Amazon, like we talked about before, the most common type of business imposter scam on our helpline. Again, these large entities don't have the capacity to be calling out to every one of their customers or every one of their beneficiaries. And so, if you get a contact from one of these places, you're a pretty good indication that's a scam. So those are some good indicators for phone calls. Recognizing a scam in a text message. So again, that unsolicited contact should be a bright red flag for you. If you get a text message and you're not sure who it's from, and you're not sure what it's about necessarily, there's a really good chance that, again, it could be a bad actor, especially if there's not someone who's identifying themselves as someone who you should be receiving a contact from. Entities that wouldn't have your phone number and or that you haven't requested text correspondence. So I think this is really important because there are companies out there that do reach out to you via text message. But if you have not set up your type of communication preferences to receive a text message from them, I think it's really important to remember that there's a really good chance it's a scam. And I'll say a good example of this would be like a bank. And so banks might send you a text message if there's a transaction on your account. But if you haven't signed up for that service, there's no reason to believe that they would be doing that at this point. So if you receive a text message from someone who says they're with your bank, and you haven't signed up for that type of correspondence before, I would say that's a red flag of some type of scam, and you need to contact your bank to make sure nothing is wrong with your account, or at least check your account to make sure everything's okay, but using a different source than that text message. oftentimes, and with these text messages, very much like the phone calls, they pose as large businesses or government agencies. Again, if you have not kind of asked to receive that type of correspondence from the businesses that you're dealing with or government agencies, there's no reason to believe they would be contacting you that way at all. Also, a lot of these text messages have unrecognizable links that look scary just on paper anyways. And so you don't want to click on those for sure, just because you don't know exactly where it's going to take you. So again, seeing those unrecognizable links, oftentimes when I receive a scam text message, I see a link that's kind of just a bunch of gobbledygook in terms of letters and numbers and that type of a thing. And definitely very unappealing, and don't even want to accidentally click on something like that to see where it takes you. Again, oftentimes text messages might say also that there's an urgent request for information or action that needs to be taken. Again, scammers don't want to get you in that mindset that whatever you have to do very fast. And so if you see that type of language in your text message, it's also a red flag of a scam. Well, it seems like so many of the contacts we're receiving now are over the phone or through text message. There are still those emails that are coming out that you have to watch out for too. And so recognizing red flags of scam email or spam email, I think is also still really important. And so again, even though lots of these emails will be taken out by a spam filter, there are still emails that come into inboxes that you have to be watching out for. So again, watching out for emails that are seeking personal or financial information, that type of phishing that we were talking about before, coming from unfamiliar or unprofessional email addresses. And so if, for instance, if you are banking with Chase Bank, but you're receiving a notification from someone, but they're using a Gmail email account, I think it's really important to remember that anything from Chase Bank would not be coming from a Gmail account or Yahoo account or Hotmail account, that type of things. Always looking out for misspellings and typos, unprofessional formatting, also links to unknown sites that you can kind of hover over to see where they're going are just some kind of easy indicators that an email might be coming from some type of a scammer. I think it's really important to know, one of the most common scams out there that we're seeing right now, and I've been receiving these in my inbox as well, are notifications from computer support companies and antivirus companies like Norton and McAfee. And these types of entities, and what they're saying is they're essentially saying you have an unpaid invoice for your computer virus protection software. And this is definitely one of the most common types of scams we've been seeing recently with regards to with emails, phishing. And so just know that those types of emails are out there, and there's no reason to believe, especially if you've never engaged with Norton or McAfee or another type of computer software or antivirus provider, to believe that there's any legitimacy to those emails, even though they do look very official and they're companies that a lot of people do work with regularly. Just know that's a very common scam that's out there right now, one you should be watching out for, but one you also don't need to be taking seriously, especially if you don't do business with those companies either way. Recognizing scams on social media, I think, is also critically important because there are so many bad actors that are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all the different types of platforms where people can engage with one another. And so it's really important that you're able to kind of recognize any contact from an unsolicited person that you don't know is most likely someone who is trying to get money or personal information. And so, only converse with people on social media who you have some type of relationship with, ideally in person, but other people who you've met in groups who that you're just part of kind of like an interest group or have a similar type of interest, or something in common, which should be the only people you're really dealing with on social media. Watch out for people who are saying they're experts We're seeing this a lot recently. People who are saying that they are experts in cryptocurrency investment or other types of, in other fields, posing as someone again who could maybe make you money. And so these types of people have been reaching out to me personally, I know, and I know they've been reaching out to lots of other people because we've been getting lots of reports on our helplines about them as well. So watch out for people who are saying that they're experts in anything necessarily. Watch out for people who are saying that they're in need. You know, sometimes we'll get messages from someone who's saying that they're stuck in a foreign country and they need money to get out, or they have, you know, a child who needs money for some type of a reason to, you know, with regard to an illness or something like that. A lot of times people are just fabricating stories, especially if they're contacting you out of the blue. So watch out for that. Watch out for unreasonable photos and stock images or pictures of models. There's lots of people who create fake profiles and on social media to try and convince you they're someone who they're not. And so if you see an unreasonable photo that the person is, you know, airbrushed or some type of supermodel, there's a unlikelihood that person is just going out and reaching out to people randomly. Again, they probably want something. Requests for funds, again, lots of romance scams that we hear about. You know, the first red flag is of these romance scams is when they ask for money or goods. And so, you know, anyone who asks you for money or personal information or to send them something, it's time to disconnect and report them to the platform. Requests to move the conversation from the platform, again, a way for these sites not to be able to monitor the situation. So they might ask you to go talk somewhere else, like a Google Hangouts or a WhatsApp. And so that's, again, another red flag of a scam. So recognizing scams that happen in mail, again, mail is, you know, one of the more uncommon ways that we're hearing about scams, but they still exist. And when I'm thinking about the scams that we do hear about, it might be involved with different types of warranty programs, such as like a car warranty. And so again, things to watch out for with things coming into your mail. First of all, it not being first class mail. That's a good indicator that it could be something that's bad, though a lot of the times probably just a solicitation for something or some type of promotion. Requests for actions or funds, unknown senders, targeting specific populations. You know, a lot of times these types of scams are targeting folks who check their mail frequently as opposed to people who don't. And so, you know, older adults might be more likely to check their mail and rely on their mail in certain situations. And so there might be scams that are more likely targeted to them. We also see this with regards to sweepstakes scams, historically have come in the mail, though it seems like right now they're mostly coming on social media as well as over the phone. And lastly, in this recognized category is recognizing scams that are in person. And so, again, this is again a little bit harder to identify, but you know, people who might show up at your door looking for something, and so you know, again, smooth talker, fast talker, some type of short-term offer where you have to make a decision quick is a really good indicator. You know, any offer that seems too good to be true, also that type of situation. I would say that in general, you know, this type of a scam is again probably something that's going to happen potentially at your door, or someone might show up and say, you know, I can do a project at your house, I just need a little bit of money in advance, and then maybe they just don't come back again. And so, you know, just again, things to be watching out for, as we still do know that there are criminals out there who are still trying to take people's money in person as well. Another thing that I think is really important to recognize, in addition to the communication methods, are the payment methods that are requested frequently by scammers. And so if you can recognize a communication method and tie it together with whatever payment method that they're looking for, there's a, you know, sets up a really good case that whatever situation you're dealing with might be a scam. And so, you know, some commonalities around payment methods that scammers are looking for, first of all, is that something that's quick, something that's easily accessible, something that's hard to trace, something that has few protections in terms of, and so like, for example, a credit card wouldn't be something a scammer would normally ask for, because there's lots of protections when you use a credit card, right? Also, another commonality that doesn't work for all of these, but most of them, is that the method of payment is potentially confusing or maybe a little bit new to the person who's using it. And so when you look at this list of very common kind of payment methods that are requested by scammers, we'll see gift cards. And so again, something that's easily accessible at grocery stores and stores pretty much anywhere that you go. It's hard to trace, few protections. Once the money has been spent, it's been spent. And it's very quick as well. Peer-to-peer payment apps, you don't even have to leave your home to do this type of payment. When you're using a Cash App or a Venmo or a Zelle. And once the money is gone, the money is gone. So it's important to know that. Very accessible and much more common for many, many people to use of all ages right now are those peer-to-peer payment apps. And so again, it's a common payment method requested for by scammers, and they should only be used really when you are paying a friend or family member for a service or splitting something in those situations. The third one on this list is cryptocurrency, often Bitcoin. Again, cryptocurrency is much more accessible than it ever used to be. Again, and also very hard to trace. And so, you can go to a grocery store now or a gas station now, put your money in, and then send it in to someone else's cryptocurrency wallet. And then again, that money is gone. And so again, something that scammers are regularly asking for money in terms of funds is cryptocurrency. Wire transfers, again, these still might have to be initiated at a bank or a store. And so we see them being asked for a little bit less, but at the same time, still another option, especially if the scammer has really, has a good story in terms of why you should be sending that wire transfer, and the person is convinced that they must do it in that way. Cash, we still do hear about cash transactions where someone might be mailing cash, or someone might be dropping off cash with a courier or something like that. And so again, be really wary of that. And also we're seeing lots of scammers who are trying to get onto people's computers and accessing their bank accounts online. And so, for instance, this happens a lot in tech support scams, where a tech support scammer might say, oh, let's get onto your bank account, and then the person logs into their bank account, and then they might try to steal money that way. And so again, recognizing what type of payment methods scammers are looking for. Again, if someone's asking for payment via credit card, it's probably unlikely that person is much more unlikely that person is a scammer, as opposed to requesting one of these methods up on the screen right here. So we're moving from the recognizing parts of scams now to the refusing parts of scams. And this is a much shorter section of the presentation in terms of how to refuse and ways to refuse in these different situations involving these different communication methods. So for the phone call, really important that you manage your phone calls and don't answer calls that are coming in that you're not familiar with, and hang up on someone who if you do answer and it's not someone you want to talk to and you don't think that person has good intention, just hang up on them. You give you full permission to be rude in these situations, especially if you know that person is either trying to take your money or take your personal information. Text messages, very similar. Don't respond to these text messages, even if they're really, really annoying. Block numbers that they're coming from, delete them, mark them as spam. Text messages in your phone, and of course, avoiding clicking on links with regard to any of these text messages you receive. Email, the way you refuse these different types of emails, mark them as spam. So if it comes into your email box that looks similar, the next time it's going to go straight to your spam folder, not to your inbox. So that's one way of getting rid of it. Delete anything that you don't want to see again. Don't respond to these people. It's not worth messing with in these situations. And same with the text message and phone calls. It's not worth messing with these people. They're not worth your time. And so the more that you go back and forth or converse with them, the more likely they think they can get money from you, and the more likely they are to keep contacting you. Also, of course, avoid clicking links, as I mentioned before, with regards to the emails. Social media. Only talk to people who you know. Make sure your privacy settings are set up And so you can do this on all the different types of social media, wherever you're on, in terms of Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, making sure that only people who you know and people who you have approved to see your page are able to see your page. And again, and not responding to unsolicited contacts. It might be tempting in some situations, and I know that this is the way that a lot of romance scams have started, is by responding to unsolicited contacts. But don't be tempted by these situations. Again, what they're often looking for is money or personal information. With regard to your mail, anything that you get that you're suspect of, shred it and put it in the trash. Also, it's can be worthwhile to report it directly to the Postal Service. There's a Postal Inspection Service as well, if you're continue to receive the same type of scam mail in your mailbox every day. Also, in person, this might sound a little bit cheesy, but developing a refusal script for uncomfortable situations is a really easy way to get yourself out of different situations. And so I highly recommend that. I know personally, I'm not very good at saying no to someone who's at my door, but developing a refusal script for myself, for that person who's at my door, to say, I don't do business at my door. You can leave me with information. I'll contact you if I want to talk to you about this, or if I'm interested in the product, that type of a thing. It just really depends. I would say the kind of the most generic refusal script that I think of sometimes is when you are going to the grocery store and they're selling Girl Scout cookies out front. And yes, I want Girl Scout cookies, but at the same time, I don't need the Girl Scout cookies, but then I also feel bad and I want to support the Girl Scouts. And so I come with my own refusal script. Whether it be, I've already bought too many cookies, or, I'll get you next time, or whatever it may be. But thinking about whatever is comfortable for you to say as you're walking in or out of the store, to make the transaction not be awkward and make it be comfortable. I know that's very different than a situation involving a scammer, but it's also, again, thinking about your refusal scripts and how you might need to use them in different situations that might be uncomfortable for you. Finally, the last part of the presentation really has to do with reporting. And I wanted to put some of my favorite resources as part of the reporting and just talk about them a bit. So the Colorado Consumer Line is the Colorado Attorney General's phone number. And when you call that 800 number at the top of the screen, 800-222-4444, you get a variety of different options to connect with the Colorado Attorney General's office, as well as AARP ElderWatch. I'd also recommend checking out both those websites, stopfraudcolorado.gov, as well as coag.gov. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center is ic3.gov. If you're involved in any type of fraud or scam situation that was online, going to ic3.gov is a good place to start in terms of reporting. The FTC's identity theft website is probably one of the most common resources that I provide to victims of frauds or scams. And so I highly recommend visiting that website, identitytheft.gov. There's great information on that site about preventative measures you can take before having identity theft issues, as well as kind of reactive measures that you can take too, things like placing fraud alerts and credit freezes, as well as checking your annual credit report. All that information is on the FTC's identity theft website. You can also file a report about identity theft on that website as well. FTC's Complaint Assistant, again, is a place where you can file complaints with the Federal Trade Commission, either at that phone number on the screen or to reportfraud.ftc.gov. And there, FTC is definitely one of the main repositories of fraud reporting in the country, and kind of combines all the information from a lot of different agencies, including AARP's FraudWatch Network, as part of the reporting mechanism. A couple other important places to know about in terms of reporting. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, if you're having a problem with a bank or financial institution, you can file a complaint to CFPB, and it's that consumerfinance.gov/complaint. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation is a great resource for folks with a little bit more in-depth identity theft related issues for residents in Colorado. So I recommend Contacting the CBI Victim Support Center if you do have some type of identity theft issue that might be a little bit more in depth. Annualcreditreport.com is the place where you can go to request your free annual credit report from the 3 credit reporting bureaus. And it's a really smart thing to do, and something that folks should be doing at least a couple of times a year, just to make sure nothing funky is on their annual credit report. And the last resource on this page, the Better Business Bureau. Again, doing research before buying a product or service or engaging with a company you've never engaged with before is a really smart way of saving time and energy down the road. Additionally, you can file complaints in the Better Business Bureau, and there are some large corporations that you might be dealing with when you file those types of reports that respond in a different fashion than they might on the phone. And so I do often recommend people file complaints with the Better Business Bureau to get maybe a different type of response than they have been receiving in the future, or already or previously. So good thing to know about that. bbb.org is a good place to go as well. Other places that you should be reporting that are a little bit less specific, if something is happening in person or in your community, the police are a great place to start. And so local law enforcement, file a report with them, so it's on record and you can move forward with that. Obviously, banks and other financial institutions, if there's a problem with something that's going on with your bank or credit cards. So I recommend, again, making sure they're on the top of the list as places to report if you are having a problem where someone might have taken money of yours or accessed one of your accounts. Very important to remember. The appropriate state attorney general. I say this because not all businesses are located in or headquartered in one location. So, for instance, if you're doing business with a company but they're actually located in Florida, but you're in Colorado, you can file the report and a complaint with the Colorado Attorney General's office. But if that business is located or headquartered in Florida, you should also file a report with the Florida Attorney General's office as well. State regulators, there's lots of different state regulators that regulate all different types of things. I think it's really important to think about the different agencies in your state that regulate different types of things. In Colorado, Department of Regulatory Agencies is kind of like the mothership for a lot of these agencies, and important to know about. They often work very closely with the Colorado Attorney General's office as well to solve different types of issues that consumers are bothered with. So remember about the state regulators that are out there. There's lots of different offices that regulate all different types of industries. Contacting the retailer if the issue had to do with the retailer is really important to remember. That might feel obvious to some people, but at the same time, sometimes the best way to resolve situations is dealing directly with the entity that was selling you the product itself. Service providers, same thing. It might seem obvious in these situations, but if we're talking about phones or internet or utilities, that type of thing, dealing directly with the service provider is a good place to go. Also, other consumer review sites. There are lots of companies that respond directly to different types of consumer review sites as well. And so you might get some type of satisfaction from, placing a review somewhere, through Google or Yelp or whatever it may be. And so remember that as an option as well. So just in summary, some ways to avoid scams, kind of putting it all together, protecting your personal and financial information. I know I already said that about 20 different times today, but it's critically important. Managing your phone calls, like we talked about with regards to recognizing scam phone calls, doing your research, with entities like the Better Business Bureau and other review sites, and making sure that you're doing business with a good entity. Avoiding contact with any unknown entities. Again, it's okay to be skeptical and it's okay to be rude. Don't rush to act, think, and talk to others. Scammers don't want you to think, and they don't want you to verify what you're doing with anyone else. And so I think it's critically important that you take a deep breath and take those steps when presented with an opportunity that seems a little bit off. Consider unusual payment options a red flag, and we talked about that quite a bit with recognizing payment issues. If it sounds too good to be true, definitely is. Actively seek information about trending frauds and scams, just like you're doing today. Share your story. It might save someone else down the road. And report. So we can do different presentations like this and help give you information about the most common types of scams that are out there. Just want to thank you so much for listening to today's presentation. I hope you got a bit more out of it, and know that there's lots of AARP ElderWatch presentations on our YouTube page. And so be sure to check all those out too. Have a great rest of the day.